Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Hamlee. Up next on Another View, a history lesson on the Basilica of St. Mary of the Immaculate Conception. It's the only Catholic church in Virginia with basilica status. It's the only basilica in the U.S. with a predominantly African-American congregation. It's a beacon of life and hope for a struggling community, and it's in need of your help. Father Jim Curran, Deacon Calvin Bailey, and Director of Development Racquel Mayner are here to share the rich history of this iconic church and why they need you to get involved. Another View is next, right after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Hamlee. It feels like I've been away for a long, long time, but I want to thank Lisa and Victor for jumping in. My mom had some emergency surgery. She's doing well, and so I appreciate all of you all's calls and support, so thank you very much for that. So you can see the beautiful white building from Interstate 264 as you enter downtown Norfolk from Portsmouth. For 158 years, the Basilica of St. Mary of the Immaculate Conception has provided refuge, hope, spirituality, education, and peace for members of its congregation and the community at large. There is a ton of history to this state historic landmark, but if we want it to be around for the next 150 years or more, we all need to get involved. Joining us to share this Another View history lesson is Father Jim Curran, pastor at St. Mary's. How are you, Jim? Welcome back.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
And we're glad to have you. Calvin Bailey, who serves as Deacon. How are you, Deacon Bailey?
I am well.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate that. And Racquel Mayner, who serves as Director of Development. Her friends call her Rocky. Yes. Hey there.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Now, let me say first and foremost, happy birthday, Father Curran.
Thank you very much.
So those of you who are members of St. Mary's, you can call in. I really want you to call in to share your remembrances, share your favorite stories about this historic church. And you can do that by dialing 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Before we get into our discussion about St. Mary's, our Lisa Godley has a retrospective of the church.
The church started as St. Patrick's Church in December of 1791. Its first parishioners were French Catholics who fled their native land during the French Revolution and wanted a place to worship. 50 years later, the church was built, but the building was destroyed by fire in 1856. It was rebuilt 2 years later into its present building in downtown Norfolk. At that time, it was dedicated to Mary of the Immaculate Conception. In 1886, African-American Catholics began worshiping with the rest of the congregation. Ushers would save a row on the choir loft for them. At the same time, a group of Catholic worshipers dedicated to serving the African-American community began coming from Richmond to worship there. They later founded their own church, St. Joseph's Black Catholic Parish. In 1961, St. Joseph's and St. Mary's merged together, making it a predominantly Black congregation. In November of 1989, St. Mary's underwent major renovations and was rededicated during a Mass where the Most Reverend Pio Laghi, the Italian cardinal from the Catholic Church, served as principal celebrant. 2 years later, on its 200th anniversary, the church officially became a minor basilica. Basilica status means a church has been recognized by the Pope and becomes a place of pilgrimage. In March of this year, the Diocese of Richmond, Bishop Francis de Lorenzo, opened the second Holy Door of Mercy at St. Mary's. This serves as an invitation to the faithful throughout the diocese to embark on a pilgrimage for conversion, to accept and extend God's mercy to all. Meanwhile, St. Mary's faces many structural challenges as members undertake a $1 million campaign to raise money for badly needed repairs to the nearly 160-year-old structure. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
So a lot of very rich history. But for those who are not Catholic, Father Curran, explain the name Basilica of St. Mary of the Immaculate Conception. Tell us exactly what that means.
Okay. Basilica, as was stated, is an honorary title that's given, and it's not. It's a title that's given to a church that has significant architectural beauty, historical significance, and a significant way in which they live the mission of the church, which is to reach out, to feed the poor, the works of mercy. And they recognized the Basilica not just because it's a pretty church. There are a lot of pretty churches, and not just because it's historical. There are a lot, but it's the way that we worship, the way that we serve that caught the eye of the Pope, and he said, we'd like to make this stand out, and it becomes kind of a beacon to other churches as well, that this is what the church ought to be doing.
So, and it's the only one with an African American congregation in the country?
There are two different kinds of parishes in the Catholic Church. One is a territorial parish, and that's what we're most used to. So your parish would be the church in which you belong. In the boundaries, you belong to that church. And then there's what's called personal parishes, and personal parishes are established based on a charism rather than a territory. Mm-hmm. So we have some Latin Rite masses in the Diocese of Richmond, and anybody who wants to can go and become a member of that church, regardless of the boundaries of where you live.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And we are a personal parish, so we're not a predominantly African American parish. We are an African American parish. That is our charism. So that even if the numbers changed and more white people started coming, more Caucasians, we would still be an African American parish. And the nature of worship, the nature of service, the nature of fellowship would all flow from that rich cultural heritage.
Gotcha. So Deacon Bailey, Lisa in her piece, what I thought was very kind when she said they reserved space in the balcony. But the true history of that, explain to us in terms of what was going on back in the 1800s.
Back then, with St. Patrick's, there were always African Americans or Haitian Americans, and we were in a time when blacks and whites just didn't worship together. And speaking to some folks, even after St. Patrick's was destroyed, there was still an issue at St. Mary's. During that time, though, there was a large anti-Catholic sentiment anyway during the time of St. Patrick's. And then to make things worse, blacks and whites were worshiping together. Heaven forbid.
As a matter of fact, I read an article about a priest from St. Joseph's, the black Catholic church, that he was kidnapped by the KKK. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
I've heard various stories about that. I like to sit with the elders of the church, but the version that I heard, and I hear more often, was that they did come. They pulled him out of the rectory. They took him to what is now part of Chesapeake.
Wow!
And they kept him there. They threatened him. They lit a fire and everything. But he was a Josephite priest. And the Josephites,
which means,
the Josephites came to this country from England. They were originally called the Mill Hill Fathers. But then they formed their own charism here, and they worked predominantly with African Americans. They worked in some of the worst areas where no one else would go. Mm-hmm. And
the Klan was upset because they were teaching blacks to read,
educating
to write,
them, feeding them, educate,
and so forth.
all of that. Mm-hmm. And they saw it as a danger. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
So, Rocky, when the St. Joseph's was burned down, did it burn down or was it destroyed?
Actually, no, St. Joseph's was obtained by eminent domain, so it's where the scope is now.
Okay.
So their school and church ended up being closed. Okay. So all of the members were married to St. Mary's. They came over to join. But the thing is, that's what makes the history so rich is where St. Mary's is now, that's where blacks and whites were originally worshiping together. So they to me, it feels like they were brought back home to just really, embrace the
But there was white flight.
There was. And I tell you, even though there was white flight, if you come on any weekend to come and worship, it's a nice, diverse congregation. So, we have some sister parishes that still say we're the Mother Church of Tidewater. But with all of that, we still have quite a bit of diverse members who come out from Williamsburg to North Carolina and everybody in between.
Wow.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
gracious. So the building itself is extremely historic. I mean,
Yes.
it's designated as a historic landmark,
Yes.
correct? Yeah. The windows. Tell me about the windows.
The windows are original to the church, so they're 1858. Yeah, from made in Germany, in Munich. They were hard to see from the outside because they were protected by plexiglass, which is what I think people were doing in the 70s. But plexiglass discolors and it traps heat and moisture in between, so it did a lot of damage to the structure of the window, and you couldn't see it from the outside. All you saw was the yellow plexiglass, and the plexiglass is off now, and there's a tempered clear glass, so you can see from the outside as you walk by the church. Now you can see how beautiful they are, and you can from inside, all of a sudden you can see the colors dancing on the walls, which is what it was intended for.
I hope I wish my listeners, if you're not watching us online, if you could see the joy and excitement in these folks' faces as you describe what is going on. Apparently, that's something that is very exciting to the congregation.
Oh, it is. It is. Yeah, we haven't seen that dance of light in decades.
Right.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call. Give us a call if you've had an experience with St. Mary's. Either you went to the academy or perhaps you were a member, or if whatever type of experience you've ever had, we'd love to hear your story. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So, Rocky, one of the big things that St. Mary's does is outreach.
Yes.
Talk to me about your community engagement. What do you do for the community?
Wow. That's how I could describe it. You could spell that backwards. It is so impressive what comes out of our food pantry and our soup kitchen. And then we have a resource ministry that just serves in abundance. So just to give you an example, our soup kitchen, we were looking at the numbers for last year, and there were over 30,000 EVMS certified nutritious meals that were served. I know. But then if you think, then I look at that and I say, okay, as if that wasn't, enough, 50,000 individuals received groceries from our food pantry. And
this is all given.
That's right.
To the community.
That's right. We have to apply for funds and things of that nature to keep it going. But again, we have so many people in and around us that are benevolent. They want to help. And it doesn't matter whether you're a member of the church. I mean, we really serve, and word gets out because the soup kitchen serves some really great meals. Father Jim says it best that, we don't feed the poor, we feed the hungry. And it's just... I visit often. I go over, and just to see, you talk about the joy. Oh my gosh, they're so grateful,
How many meals, how many times a day? How does one find out about that?
It's 4 days a week, and it's one meal, but it's a substantial meal. And we are partnered with Social Service and 211.org and other organizations and community outreach. They know where to find us, and they know who to send.
Because the church, Father Curran, is located right beside or in part of Tidewater Gardens, public housing unit. And as I'm sure people know, I'm the chair of the board for NRHA, which takes care of our public housing units. But are many members from the public housing units members of the church, or do, as you said, people come from everywhere?
Some are, and some have started in there and then have since moved out. So there's a real connection with the parishioners, even if they're not living there now. Many grew up there as children, and they talk about that. Deacon Bailey grew up there, and that's true of many of our parishioners. We kind of have, if you live in that neighborhood, you are our parishioner, and we have a responsibility to you because you are there. And it's not, even if they're not a member, even if they're not Catholic and they go to another church, they're still one of us. So there really is a very strong sense, at least from our perspective, of belonging there. This is.
So Deacon Bailey, tell me, you grew up in Tidewater Gardens?
I'm a product of Tidewater Garden.
Okay.
I lived about 2 blocks from the church. My grandmother lived across the street from the school. I went to St. Joseph's School when I was younger. Then we moved to St. Mary's because I was not Catholic, and I couldn't go to St. Mary's. They had so many people that was going that they had a level off at a certain grade. But one day I went to my family and I told them, I think I can serve God better as a Catholic. And my grandmother asked why. And I told her, and my grandmother and I became Catholic together.
Really?
Yes.
So what did you tell her? I was going to say, because, most people think, when you think African American, you think Baptist or Methodist or, it's not, there aren't very many African American Catholics.
Right.
Actually, there are more African American Catholics in the United States than there are Episcopalians in the United States. So it's, yeah.
Interesting. So what was your reasoning?
It wasn't just the word, but the word lived out. And the sacraments, the rites of the Catholic Church are so beautiful when you look at them that it just draws you in. The rites of the Catholic Church are all promises from God. They explain, it's not just enough to say God loves you, but the rites show you how God loves you. It shows you how God is calling you. It challenges you to go out and do something that you think is beyond yourself with God's help. It tells us that you just can't go out in the name of Jesus. You have to go out in the image of Jesus. Otherwise, there's no authentic authority in it. That's what drew me as a youngster.
And then what did your grandmother, did she just wanted to support you, or she saw the same thing?
We talked about it, and she decided, at her late age that, yes, this is what I want. This is what I want to experience.
So what do you all see in terms of the difference in, you've all been there for a while, in terms of the neighborhood and the city of Norfolk in general, but the neighborhood is particularly where you're located. Are things getting better? Are they worse? How is the church working within that neighborhood to make a difference? I'll start with you, Rocky.
It ebbs and flows, and I think when the economy does what it does, then so do our neighbors. It ebbs and flows. Just for 20 years, I'm a newbie, but for the past 20 years, it just depends. If the economy's great, folks are able to work, the jobs are in abundance, then you don't see as many. You won't see those impressive numbers. But with the economy doing what it is and folks are just struggling, then we're going to keep seeing those trends. And it's not for lack of trying for the most part, but it's just
What's your perception, Deacon?
It's a different atmosphere than what I experienced when I was young, but the whole country has a different atmosphere now. When I was growing up, the two key things for us is that we could count on our family, we could count on our community, and we could count on God. The community piece isn't as strong as it used to be. And sometimes we worried about that, but when you go to our soup kitchen, when we sleep the homeless, you see the different atmosphere, and our guest tells us that. We accept people as guests. We tell our volunteers that Jesus is going to come in here tonight, and we don't know what he's going to look like or how he's going to act. But we must be willing to accept them as Jesus, as brother and sister. And they tell us, we love to come here because you don't treat us like an outsider. You don't treat us like we're less than you. You treat us like we're brother and sister. I have had some of the best prayer groups from the people who have been there as our guests.
And have come in from as our guests, as you say. How many members are of your congregation?
We have about 900 families, households, so about 2,200 families. But I'd like to say one more thing. Sure. One of the things that gives me a lot of hope in Tidewater Gardens, we partner with other reverends, other churches, because we are limited, because we are Catholic, and because we are kind of seen as part of a hierarchy. The grassroots churches can do so much more in terms of knocking on doors. And
interesting. Explain that.
Well, there's a pastor, Stephen Kaya, Kaya Stevens, who asked if he could use our basketball court to have rallies and just services, and we said absolutely, and we provide them with everything they need. The food, the water, the sound system, and they go and knock on doors. And again, he's from there, so there's credibility. So he can knock on the doors, and he can do so much more than I think we would be able to. I think people would look at us a little suspiciously. They know that we're there to help, and I think there's great appreciation for what we do. But when you look at the youth and getting the youth together and getting them to come out and join, I think to partner with one of those grassroots churches is much more effective. And I think he's doing a wonderful job out there.
Interesting. So you are not African American.
I am not.
Some people question that when they hear
Some
him.
people
Sure do.
But I wonder how, and we talked about this a little bit when you were on the show before, but in terms of, one, when you first came and acceptance, and two, there's the lack of, or the fewer numbers of African American priests. Is that, I would assume, is also a reason why there's a mixture in terms of having a white priest with a predominantly African American congregation?
There
Or
is.
not?
I was here as a deacon when there was a black priest, and I was here when he made the announcement that he was leaving and he was being transferred, and he was being replaced by a white priest. And the question that everybody asked when they left was, does he love black people? And that was what they cared about. They didn't care if he was white, but will they get us? Will he get us? Will he understand us? Will he love us? Will he be here with us? And that, I think, is part of the beauty of one of the many beautiful aspects of the African American culture is that is the one mark that you cannot be without. If you're going to be a part of this, this must be there. And if it's not there, then it doesn't matter about anything else. But if you don't love us, and if you're not standing with us, and if you don't understand where we came from and where we want to go, and if you're not going to lead us there, then you can't be here. If you are, then we don't care what color you are.
So as I was reading, Father Quinlan was one who really insisted that the African American culture become a part of the worship service. Is that, you want to respond to that, Deacon Bailey?
I don't know. TQ was just a priest that was way ahead of his time. He was a liturgical genius. We argued a lot. But he insisted that you need to know who you are. You need to accept who you are no matter what the Catholic Church says. And you need to know the Word of God. If you do those things, then he says, then you will do outreach. And if you don't do those things, then you are a phony. He wouldn't use quite as nice words as I do.
So has there been any pushback from the Archdiocese? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
In terms of, because I hear that you guys have like fabulous services and that the music is great, and
Yeah.
people might think they're coming to a Baptist church or something if they come in. But is there any pushback?
No, none at all. In fact, we are a flagship in the diocese, and I've had people come who normally go to a Latin Rite Mass, so they're used to the Mass in Latin. You've seen it on TV with the chanting and the zaqueta on the head. Right. And she walked out one Sunday and she said, "This is so far out of my comfort zone, but I loved it because it is." And I think this is what happens to white pastors when they come into a black church. They say, "Now I understand my faith. Mm-hmm. Now I understand the liturgy because you have a a congregation who come, they bring the worship. Worship and in liturgy isn't something that we do. It is brought and it is celebrated, and you go, now I understand, now I get it. There's a fullness. It's not, it involves the intellect, it involves the emotion, and it involves the physical body, which is so Catholic. It is the fullness of worship, and every sense is engaged, and you cannot leave there unmoved.
Rocky, let me ask you a question. Because I am not Catholic, and I've been to some Catholic services, and the etiquette of being non-Catholic in a Catholic church. I mean, how should one navigate? If you come in, because I used to get very confused. I have to be honest. When I should kneel, when I shouldn't. I mean, what should I do? Right. So talk to me a little bit about that.
You know what? Everyone is strangers or friends we haven't met yet. That's why everyone's a guest to us. So if you decided to come worship anyone, you would quickly make a friend with the person you sit with in the pew, and they will guide you through it. We have worship aids, but you won't even need that, because your spirit and the feeling, you'll know when it's time to stand up. And we don't have kneelers, but you'll see some folks do it. So you'll be right at home, because you're gonna feel the spirit in the church, and you'll go, okay, I can do this. That's right.
So in other words, don't be intimidated.
Don't worry.
right.
And as a matter of fact, come on out.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about the history of the Basilica of St. Mary of the Immaculate Conception with Father Jim Curran, Deacon Calvin Bailey, and Racquel Mayner, who is the Director of Development. Let's go to our phones, because we got some folks that want to talk to us. Alana joins us from Norfolk. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yes.
How are you?
I am well, thank you.
Good.
I wanted to congratulate Father on his birthday. Happy birthday, Father.
Thank you, Elena.
To say hello to all my friends who are there with you. I have to share that you will know who I am. Elena is my WHRV name.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I live by another name. But I wanted to say that St. Mary's is sort of a best-kept secret. And anyone who is listening now, I will invite you wholeheartedly to come and have at least a single experience of our worship life. The music, the prayer, the outreach. We've been on the cutting edge of so much, and we really need you to join us to see this, to witness what this mixed congregation looks like. We've been on the cutting edge, as I said, of things like restoration of rights, walking with Dr. Yvonne Miller when she first started this effort so many years ago. She's now deceased, but people have even come and shared with me, I remember when you came, and this is what has happened, and they've had rights restored. We've worked with efforts for justice and peace all over the area. We've been involved when police issues and policing with racial overtones became such a prominent problem. Mm-hmm. We were there to help move in the right direction. We feed the poor, we do the homeless. We just had a week in the Nest program where we had all our guests there, and hopefully they left feeling a little better and a little more encouraged about life.
Okay.
We have connections to higher institutions of higher education. I could go on.
I can tell you're very excited. We appreciate the call, Elena. Thank you so very much. I wanted to ask you, what is the history of St. Mary's in terms of the civil rights movement? Are there some stories you can share, Deacon?
Just from what I've heard from my elders again, the people from St. Joseph who came to St. Mary's were very strong people. And they were people who, especially under TQ, decided that I will be heard no matter what anyone says. Mm-hmm. And so they linked with their non-Catholic brothers and sisters. They did marches. They went to Richmond to speak to their bishop. There's a story of one family who walked to Richmond. It took him a bit.
Wow. He walked from here to Richmond?
To Richmond. He didn't think, make sure I say this correctly. He wasn't sure if we were doing things correctly, the church was doing things correctly, and so he went to Richmond to speak to the bishop to make sure that the bishop knew what we, the church, was supposed to be doing.
I'd like to add, that's such a great question. I think of right now how we look at the outside construction, but it's really internal and it's transformational what has happened. We have Deacon provided baptismal records of slaves. So I think St. Mary's was ahead of the civil rights movement, because I say that to say it was before the movement that they were already moving in the right direction. Does that make sense? And that to me, it's almost like a precursor. They say, we're just going to do what we do, because that's what Christ wants. We're going to do what we do.
So they were bringing people together before it was fashionable to bring people together. Mark joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Mark. You're on the air.
Hey, good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon.
I recall I was a student at Norfolk State University in the mid-'80s, and I had a banking relationship with Crestar Bank on 21st Street, and the manager there at the time was Mr. Brandon. So I go into the bank one day, and he said, I want you to give $1,000 to Father Barrett, for the church. They, have issues. And I said, well, if I'm going to give $1,000, I may as well just give it to my own church. He said, no. He said, I really, really, really would like for you to give $1,000 to St. Mary's. And so I met Father Barrett. I gave $1,000. And after listening to the history that I did not know about this church, some decades later now, I'm glad I gave that $1,000.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Too.
They are all very, very appreciative. Thanks so much for the call, Mark. We appreciate that. So let's see. Jeffrey joins us from Virginia Beach. Hi, Jeffrey. You're on the air.
Hi, everybody. Miss Hamley, and hi, Rocky, and Deacon Calvin, and Father Jim, Jeff Charity.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I just wanted to call in, first of all, say happy birthday, Father Jim.
Thank you, Jeff.
And I wanted to express my extreme pride at being a Black Catholic, at being part of such historically valuable, faith-based institution. And, I just kind of wanted to piggyback on all the things that have been said previously. St. Mary's, anywhere and everywhere I go, people ask me, I guess the first thing they think, like you said, they see Black person, they think maybe Baptist or something like that. And they ask me, well, where do you worship? And I say, St. Mary's, Basilica St. Mary's. And they're, oh, wow. They're so always impressed. And I love to be a representative and sort of a quasi-ambassador of my Basilica and by extension, the Catholic faith as well. So I just want to call and share that with you.
Thank you, Jeffrey, so much for that. We appreciate that. So the pride is clear, but for the community at large, why should we care what's happening to St. Mary's right now? What is happening to St. Mary's right now?
Right now, St. Mary's is undergoing you had mentioned $1 million project. It's really up to 4.
It's up to 4 now. Okay.
So we're and I am confident that we'll make it, because it is an essential place. It's not just an architectural essential for the city. It really is what we do there. It is the hungry souls that come through and are nourished. It's the hungry bellies that come in and are fed. It's the hungry minds that get nurtured in our school. There's so much that goes on, and there's so much that happens there. Head Start meets there. We're also starting January. There's an educational program for middle school kids coming through the court systems to keep them out of prisons and out of the court systems. And so there's that educational opportunity that's happening there beginning in January, there is so much happening in that space. And it's not just Catholic, you know. We don't check ID cards before we serve. It's
you're serving the entire community.
Exactly.
So, but the building itself needs repair. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. What's going on with it?
When I first interviewed with the Finance Council, they told me that the roof had some leaks and it needed to be fixed, and you can't come here and be our pastor if you're not willing to fix it. And even interviewing is something that's not common in Catholic churches. This was unique to the Basilica. So the bishop sent me, and he said, if you don't like them, we won't send them. And I said I was ready for it. And when we started, it was all fine. But then, a 158-year-old building, and we discovered that the bones, the skeleton that holds up the roof and the entire structure, in fact, has been over decades, corrosion, water damage, termite damage. And so I was up on the scaffolding with the workers at one point, and they pulled out this piece of wood, and he said, it looks like this was built with papyrus because it was so thin. Wow. And yeah, it was angel wings holding it up. So we're about halfway finished with the repairs, but we still have a lot to go. And you never know what you're going to find. The more you open up, the more you discover, and it's. And
over the years, have you, because it feels like the church is kind of boxed in. Yeah. Because of all the tall buildings downtown and, the housing projects and so forth and so on. So, have you had to, over the years, fight to maintain your space there or not?
No, not at all. The city actually talks to us about everything that's going on. It's recognized religiously, historically. It's really a landmark, but not just a physical landmark. I think it's had an impact on so many people that are leaders in the community. Everyone by some way, shape, or form was touched by St. Mary's. And to piggyback on what Father Jim was saying with the roof, people hear, $4 million for a roof. It's not the roof; it's the structure.
It's the actual structure.
Almost 58-year-old wood that has deteriorated, and it's the construction that's happening to the building, it is so synonymous. It doesn't look like what it's been through when you look at it. But when you really start to peel it apart, it's like any of us. We've got layers and scars and things that have happened, but because of St. Mary's, we've healed. And so now we have this ginormous, they got him. They told him, it's the roof, but we're glad to have him. He's such a gift. But, that's...
You want to add to that, Deacon?
Yes, at least once a year I have to meet with my bishop. And the last meeting, the bishop asked about St. Mary's. And I told him, I said, Bishop, you've been here for a while. I think one of the best decisions you ever made was to send Jim Curran to be our pastor. And I said, let me tell you why. Because he was concerned with how the people were doing with everything that's going on. I said, the people know that Jim loves them. The people know that he cares. And I don't think you could send another priest to us with everything going on and that priest keep the people at peace in heart. That's what he brings to us. And the building itself, people come in, they talk about how beautiful the building is, and I said, this building can't touch the people. We've been this way for years and years and years. And God has sent us good priests when we needed them. And they've sent priests that will take care of us. This man takes care of us. And we all believe that no matter what happens, St. Mary's will be taken care of. The building will stand, and the people will continue to serve.
So in all congregations, regardless of denomination, getting young people to come in seems to be a struggle. I'd love to hear from each of you. What are you doing to, first of all, is that an issue at St. Mary's? And if it is, then what are you doing to change it?
I think it's an issue everywhere. I think that this generation is very savvy, and they see through so many things. They're not going to be easily fooled. So they're insulted. I was a campus minister for many years, and they get insulted when people say, well, we have to upgrade our worship. And I said, no, that's not what we need. And we need the newest communication devices. And it's insulting to them. And, no, we want, they want a church who is involved in the community, who is making an active change, who is reforming the society where we live. And if you're doing that, they'll be a part of you. And you don't have to do anything. They will find you. If you're not doing it, nothing else you do is going to matter. That's where they are.
So even in this day of technological wonders and big screens and all of that, you're saying that's not what's pulling them in.
That doesn't pull them in. They want a good sound mystery in their theology. So they don't want the easy answers that are so easily kind of broken. They don't want very, very rigid structures that break easily. They want more malleable structures, but more than anything, they want to be in the midst of the change. And if you look at all of the rallies and demonstrations after the election, they're all young people, and they're young people of every race, but they want to be there. They want to be in the forefront of social change, and if you're there, they'll be there.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Rock.
Deacon said something earlier that, when you ask him how does it feel to be a white priest with the only black basilica in the U.S., that's questionable when you hear Father Jim's homilies. And that's because he comes from a place...
Homilies or sermons?
Yes, okay. the sermons, yes. A reflection on the word, right? And it comes from an authentic place. And that's what's magnetic about Father Jim, and why the youth, even though overall the church, because I straddle the millennials and generation, but still, we just question a lot more. And with Father Jim, it's relatable. You feel like it's okay that nobody's judging me because I look crazy. He reminds us of the face of Christ. Like, just think about it. And he puts himself in a lot of the homilies, his life prior to being a priest. And it's inviting and it's comforting. And it reminds us that no matter what happens here, especially as all of our senses, you cry, you hear, you feel, you take in the body and blood, at Mass. And it's full. It is a full feeling. And I think that's why the youth, for us, generations behind us, even the little ones, I have a lot of friends who visit and their children are the ones who say, Mommy, I have to go back to that church with the drums.
Right.
Because they like the My son calls Father Jim God. And I'm like, well, not quite, baby, but but it's the authenticity that comes from in here.
Father Jim, let me ask you also, are you worried about people becoming priests?
I'm not worried. I love being a priest. I probably start every fourth homily with that statement because I love it. And it's a mystery to me that more people are not flooding into it, because it is, I get to be present when God works his healing power on people. I get to be present when he reconciles them with his love. I get to be present when he feeds them and nourishes and nurtures them. It's that just being present, that sense of honor, of just being there when God does these incredible things. Who would not want that? I can't. I don't know why there aren't more people.
And I think that people from the outside looking in, and they say, well, you can't get married. Well, you can't do this. You can't do that. They look at these restrictions, I guess, that they say the Catholic Church has set that would prevent them from going there. But you're saying it goes much deeper than that.
Oh, so much deeper. And I don't see celibacy as a restriction at all. It's a freedom. That it's a freedom from maintaining that one unique relationship that takes so much effort and so much time. And anyone who's been married for more than 2 minutes knows that this is a full-time job. And there's a freedom to pray when I want to pray. There's a freedom to be silent and listen. There is a freedom to go out whenever a call comes in at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. There's a freedom to not worry about missing a son's ball game or a daughter's recital. It is a freedom to love to the fullness of the way Christ calls us to love, and universally.
Deacon, I see you wearing a collar.
Yes.
As Father Curran is, which is different from what I know of Deacon from. I'm Baptist, so from the Baptist church. Can you explain what the difference is?
The Roman Catholic deacon is an ordained clergyman. We go through theology, church history, and all of that, and the training. We also take an implied vow of celibacy when we are married, if we're married when we are ordained. If a deacon is not married when he's ordained, then he takes that vow of celibacy just as the priest.
Therefore he would not get married.
Yes,
but if you were
me,
already married.
I am married. If anything happens with my wife, then I'm a celibate male.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. See, I learned. That's why I love doing this show, because I learned so much. So, Rocky, what would you say in terms of encouraging the community, even if it's not from a religious perspective, but in terms of the historical saving of St. Mary's? What would you want them to do?
Just, it starts with a visit. I would love them to visit. If you come in just to visit, you may not want to join because you may love your church, but you get to see who you can work with to serve the community. You can call the office and ask for volunteer opportunities. You know, because of the amount of guests that we have, we can always use many hands make light work. That's what my grandmother would always say. But we really strengthen up, and we'll start to resemble the community that we were coming from, you know, where folks, a lot of our parishioners who grew up right around us, they've since moved on to other neighborhoods, but they come right back to St. Mary's. So I say to the community, come and experience it. You got to come worship at least once. So that's Saturday at 5, Sunday at 9 or noon. And then you can call the office, you know, and just ask.
So there are volunteer opportunities to be able to get involved.
And that's where we really tie together.
Deacon Bailey, what would you say to those in the community who may be looking at this structure, who may be looking at this institution, and why it's important to remain here?
You know, I would probably piggyback, Rocky, that building has been there for a long time. It you know, before all the high rises, it was the center. Everyone looked to see what time it was on the clock. Now you look to us and see what time it is in your spiritual life, the life of God. People come and they visit because we have one couple that comes every 8 weeks from Northern Virginia because they say then they can feel like they've been to church. Mm-hmm. There's a freedom there. There's a love and respect for each other there. That's why I tell folk that the building can't even compare to the beauty of the people.
Yes.
When I go somewhere to give a retreat, I went somewhere to give a retreat a couple of years ago, and the priest there says, Calvin, I want you to come and bring the Spirit to my people. And I said, Father, if we believe the Word of God, the Spirit is there. My job is to come and help them to free it. Mm. That's what you find at St. Mary's.
Okay. And Father Curran, you have the last minute in terms of just talking to people about why you feel that the community at large needs to embrace St. Mary's as much as your congregants do, because clearly they're on board.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have. I've been involved with many of the local pastors, and we go to lunch and we're friends and colleagues. And there's a universal appreciation for St. Mary's, and not just what the structure, not just the building, but again the fact that we are an African American Catholic church. We are unique in that regard. The only one in Norfolk, the only basilica in the country. And there is an appreciation for it.
There. Well, we are out of time, so we're going to have to say goodbye. But if people want to contribute or if they want to help in other ways, they can always call the church office, correct? Yes. All right. Stand by. We will be right back.
I'm with Marcellus, and you all are checking out Another View on WHRV 89.5. Don't go anywhere. Check us out.
Thank you, Wynton Marsalis. We appreciate that. They come from all parts of Africa to tell their stories and share their culture through song. For more than 30 years, the African Children's Choir has entertained audiences around the world, from the Pentagon to Westminster Abbey. During their 2016 World Tour, they stopped in Hampton Roads to once again wow the crowds. But as Lisa Godley explains, they bring more than an amazing performance through music and movement. These young performers are on a mission.
The kids bring so much energy and so much hope and joy to the stage. And when people leave, they always leave just overjoyed and having a great time.
They range in age from 8 to 10 years old, and their mission while touring the U.S. is to raise awareness and funds that will enable destitute and orphan children in Africa to get an education. Tour leader Kyle Serkinya explains.
Education is very expensive in Africa, and a lot of children never get to go, or they get to go for maybe 1 year, and then the next 2 years they don't have enough school fees. And so our purpose is to help children go to school today so that they can help change Africa tomorrow.
Many of the young performers who make up the African Children's Choir have lost one or both of their own parents through war, famine, or disease. But the change taking place as a result of their talent is evident in the many lives that are touched.
There are hundreds and hundreds of young adults that got to go to school and then are now doctors, teachers, there's some lawyers. One of the news anchors for the country of Kenya was in the African Children's Choir, and through the African Children's Choir was able to get that education, and is now a news anchor that most people throughout Kenya who watch the news, they see him on the news every single day.
The tour group of 11 girls and 7 boys are all from Uganda. They eagerly shared their smiles, enthusiasm, and message, with audiences thrilling those in attendance with a plethora of music ranging from contemporary Christian to traditional African songs, radiating hope with each and every note. Once choir members have completed their 10-month concert tour, they'll return to their homeland with the tools necessary for improving the communities they call home. Each smiling face serving as a wonderful example of what can happen when a child's potential is untapped and they're given an opportunity to succeed. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
Such beautiful music and such wonderful kids. So we appreciate that. Thank you, Lisa. And thank you for joining us today for Another View. If you'd like to hear this show again or share it with a friend, simply log on to our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. You can also take Another View with you on your smartphone by downloading the free WHRO Media app. We're on Facebook, so please like us. And I'm on Twitter at Barbara Ham Lee. And I'm looking forward to meeting our listeners in Elizabeth City, North Carolina tomorrow night. I have the pleasure of serving as MC for Jazz by Candlelight. It's an awesome, awesome event, a wonderful event that benefits the River City Community Development Corporation. We'll dance the night away at the K.E. White Graduate Center at Elizabeth City State University. So if you're listening and you're coming tomorrow night, please come up and say hello. Next week, I'll be attending the Higher Education Conference as part of my other duties here at WHRO Public Media. So Lisa Godley will guest host as the roundtable tackles the issues of the day. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer, and Nicholas Thomas answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Have a fabulous weekend, and let's get together again next Friday at noon for Another View.